In the lands of Skyrim, I am currently in the middle of doing a long series of Daedric related challenge runs for every artifact, with mixed results, and with the Oblivion Remaster, I thought I could do the same here. However, I don't think the Oblivion Daedric items are super unique like Skyrim, plus a lot of the quests require a lot of power leveling just to meet the level requirements, and doing them individually wouldn't be the most entertaining. Plus, I'd have to do 2 Daedric quests for every challenge run, because you need to sacrifice one to Martin. So, why not lump every Daedric artifact challenge into one big fiesta, as today, I will attempt to beat Oblivion Remastered with only Daedric artifacts. As you can tell, this is going to be a very long challenge. For the rules, I got quite a few. The only items I can use are Daedric artifacts, and that is it. That means I can only wear armors, weapons, and useful items only obtained in Daedric Quest. That means I can't wear any armor except for the mask and the Savior's hide. I can't wear any rings except for the 2 Daedric rings, and that's it for protection. And for healing, I ran this as a poll, and the only way I can heal in combat is with the Ebony Blade, meaning I can't use any healing potions or spells. The only consolation is that I'm allowed to use spells given by the Daedric princes only for their required quest, just so that way I can actually complete the run. Also, lockpicks. I cannot lockpick unless I have the skeleton key, and the only way I can recharge items is with Azura Star, meaning no soul gems, and obviously the only weapons I can use are the rewards for the quest. I do have one little asterisk, and that is the Umbra Conundrum. I ran it as a poll also, and it was an overwhelming yes on using it, plus if I cannot use Umbra, I literally cannot soul trap, so I couldn't use Azura Star, and I don't have a functioning weapon until level 10. And it is technically a reward for Clavicus's quest, and that is very much a Daedric artifact if you follow the lore, and oh boy, it's caused so much troubles. If you have any issues with these rules, be sure to subscribe to be notified when I run a rule-related poll and tell me I'm an idiot for thinking these things up. And that is mostly it. I have a very long run ahead of me, so I wonder if my Daedric Prince of Choice has any words of wisdom.
Perhaps I could make it into something useful. Let's find out.
So starting up the run, going to be playing as an Argonian today. While sure I could have played as a Breton or a Nord for their benefits, I wanted to play as an Argonian because their immunity to poison and disease, which will be a massive boon for the early game. And why yes, I made sure my character has had a nightmare of an existence, which is probably the reason they were thrown into jail, and not because they are desperate for food. Also side note, I'm a pickle during normal business operating hours. Before talking to racism, I decided to level up Sneak a little bit. Not much because I want to use a more efficient way of leveling later on. I found out life is pain for not being able to swim, and I talked to Orpheolus Septim to start the sewer escape. I don't have any ways of damaging the enemies in the intro, so I just watch in awe as the members of the blades get cut in two. Once I'm left to my devices, which is a scary thought some days, I begin my escape out of the caves. I loot what I can for some septims, and I waste no time on my emergency exit. Eventually the rats turn into goblins, still better looking than me in the mornings, and before long I'm back with the Emperor picking my birth sign. Going for the Lordstone today, just like every Skyrim run. I'm not going to have any armor until level 17, so I'll take any defense where I can. Afterwards it is more getting hard carried as the blades question why there is a lunatic dancing around the room while the Emperor's life is in danger. Then they decide I should be the one to protect the Emperor. I do not have any weapons of the day yet, so I leave Unreal Septim to his devices, and then I can pick my class. Going with the usual today with my tag skills in Armor, Blade, Blunt, Acrobatics, Mercantile, Sneak, and Athletics. I probably could have traded out Athletics for Alchemy. Just some easy stuff to level myself up to being able to unlock the Daedric quest. I dashed out the sewers and emerged in the overworld. In the fresh sunshine, I figure first order of business is getting down to business and making my way to the Imperial City. I have a stupid role I sorta decided would make for a special form of suffering for me. I'm not just talking about the fact that I have no healing whatsoever or armor. I would have to walk to every city for the first time. Not just as a homage to another Daedric focused run, but more so in my first 2 playthroughs of Oblivion, I walked to every city for the first time, which did help cement my love for this game. Inside the marketplace I sold everything I have, mostly so that way I can have enough gold for a little exploit I will utilize to help kickstart the run. Yeah, I'm going to fully admit, I did not put down no major glitches in the rules section because I am going to need them if I want to get this run done before the Elder Scrolls 6 comes out. Once I was plundered, my first call to action is getting a weapon, and at level 1, there technically isn't a Daedric quest available unless you feel like hunting unicorns and level 20 enemies, or going through a dungeon and fighting what is arguably the most powerful single enemy in the game, or really up there. I figured not 5 minutes out of the tutorial, fighting a super boss as a pacifist is totally a smart play. Outside of Wei, which is the most forgettable hamlet in the game, only because the Imperial City takes up everyone's headspace, I hopped my way to the south until I arrived at Dwayne The Rock Johnson and entered inside. Thankfully, this dungeon is about as short as my attention span some days and is full of traps. Inside the second room, I lured the rodents onto the gas trap in the middle until they were done fumigating themselves on the average Taco Bell experience. I am an Argonian, so I laugh at my fart clouds. Once I was done building a better mousetrap, I arrived at the bottom to find Umbra. We're an Umbra, wielding Umbra, born under Umbra, with the soul of Umbra, and doesn't care about Lady Umbranox. I tried goading her into a fight, but she wasn't caring about me, not engaging in combat, so I need some way to do combat and lure her to the guards. Work smarter, not harder, so I intentionally failed to pick her pockets. Like a Karen, she stormed into the store to look for a manager to yell at since she couldn't have her own entitled way. I lured her into the room with the gas trap and let her walk around in the fumes of the Walmart specialty that has not bathed in probably years. Just one more thing to rant at the customer service person who is very underpaid and stressed out because it's the Christmas season and there is a long line building up. Eventually her hubris catches up to her and she has a stroke, and I can plunder the loot and get what is arguably the most important weapon of the game, simply because of the soul trap. Also one of the best weapons in the game because if you don't turn in the side quest, it's basically a super powerful sword with 0 weight. Back outside in the daylight, I returned to the marketplace to offload the ebony armor. Sure, it is a massive upgrade of my existing armor of nothing, but it isn't a Daedric artifact, so I can't wear it. At least I have a fat sack of cash for Clavicus and some repair hammers. Any gold I get is only used for goods and services like repair hammers and trainers. Next course of action, using an exploit that I believe is in the original to power level Sneak to 100. Trust me, I am going to need to do a lot of leveling. Level 20 is considered endgame and the highest tier of armors and weapons start to spawn. Thankfully, if there is a Bethesda game, there is always an offering of cheese right behind it, and I'm not talking about just Sheogorath. On the road between Coral and the Imperial City is an old fort, Fort Ash. If you watch the short videos of funny Oblivion moments, you'll recognize the Highwayman. The Highwayman does not care if you try to pickpocket him, and you can open and close the menu ad nauseum, and it gives you sneak experience. Also, I noticed every time I open up the menu, the lower part of his armor starts to move in a very particular way. I will leave it to your imagination what's going on, and then I will berate you for thinking very dirty. This is not the Ho video. No innuendos are intended here until they are. After close to 30 minutes speedrunning to Carpal Tunnel, I managed to hit Sneak 100, so now my sneak attacks ignore the target's armor. You can tell what type of build I'm going to go for. My favorite. Once I have failed 1,000 times of picking this kitty's pockets, I say hell with it and just take my gold back by brute force. I probably should have done this in the first place, but I ain't very bright, okay? I never increased my intelligence during the run, mostly so that way I can roleplay as me. Speaking of small brain, I arrive in Coral and take my first few level ups, putting attributes and the important perks for a warrior until I'm level 5. Sure, I could have used some trainers between the levels to get more levels, but A, I am a frugal little especially in real life, help I'm hungry, and B, I forgot about trainers. Since I'm going to be very limited on achievements until I get Azura Star, I should probably focus on getting that ASAP, so I departed from the sewage plant to head there right away. First little encounter here is a highwayman wanting to do another session of sneak power leveling. I learned my lesson the first time, and now I need wrist reconstruction surgery, so I just strike him down. Also on my way there, I was met with a very unfortunate skeleton going for a stretch. Yeah, I'll leave that abomination be. Since the dungeon was en route, I thought I could pop into the Dagon Shrine to see if I can actually grab the Xerxes early. I cannot, but at least the guard is eating a 4-course meal in dirt. Bastard's eating better than me. Anywho, in the northeastern corner of the map is the Shrine to Azura. Once I remember I need some glow dust, I return to the market and pick some up, along with some Sheogorath groceries. Madman's gotta eat. Back at Vectera, while waiting for Duskfang, I was interrupted by a conjurer. Jerk. Eventually, I'm given the most common task in clearing out a den of vampires and nothing but my jimmies. Inside the Den of Inequity, I decided to have a 1v1 duel against the first vampire, and it honestly goes surprisingly well. Mostly because I'm using an actually overpowered weapon. My course of action for basically the entire course of the game is to do a sneak attack, then lead the blood drive outside into the sunshine. Most true alpha gamers hiss at the sun, so I can use that to my advantage and use theta male strats. I do eventually come close to death on one group, mostly by not having a good rhythm with my swings. For the last group, I could sneak attack one vampire for a one-shot in front of his friend, and he just doesn't care. Yeah, sneaking in this game is hilarious. If no one sees you kill someone, Then they will assume their friend in front of them just had a heart attack or something and just continue on their way. I return to Azura's Wrath and get my first actual artifact, Azura Star. Combine the star with my soul trap weapon, and suddenly the wildlife is going to have a painful experience. Also, I hotkey the star so I can enchant my blade at a moment's notice. Next shrine on my way to the next city is Mafala. I'd love to have the ebony blade so that way I can actually heal. Small problem. I need to be level 15 to start this quest, and I'm only level 5. So it'll be a very long time until I can actually heal. Oh well, a short hike to the northwest and I come across Namira, Daedric Prince of the Vile. I get drunk on the cheapest wine they have at the supermarket and commune with Namira, and now I'm going to have an absolutely horrible hangover in the morning. Thankfully her quest is super short. I walk into a dungeon, use Namira's spell to drown out the light, and watch in delight as the priests of RK are beaten by the terminally online Reddit mods, and if you know your Namira, at least in Skyrim, I will let you marvel at the irony that is about to unfold. Though at one point I did have a bit of friendly fire unfold. I'll let them tell their differences. Once the last priests of RK began to decay, I made my escape out of the dungeon, returned to the shrine, and I was given the Ring of Namira. While I can't consume any beef jerky, I get something that is just as good. A ring with reflect damage and magic reflect. Given I have no defenses, the reflect will be pretty delicious. At this point there are 2 Daedric Princes left I can do, though one requires me to get a black soul gem, which unless if you know what you're doing, is a giant pain in the ass, so Sha Quest it is. Since I am still low leveled, all I have to worry about for right now are just wolves until I arrive at the Karkin Grove, where a bunch of minotaurs are just hanging out, along with the unicorn. Well, the unicorn is a part of a Daedric quest, so I figure I could do a little cheeky exploit for this quest. I just use my insane sneak abilities to sneak past the minotaurs who could probably one-shot me at this point, and I rode the unicorn. I would love to have this steed be my mount for the entire game, but it wasn't meant to be. I left the horse outside Reveal, and a greyhound decided to attack the guard here. Unicorn sided with predators, and began attacking the guard and me. I did not want to become the Red Bull of the East, but I guess I have to. I engaged in a long battle with the boss level unicorn. It does quite a bit of damage to me, and I think it has reflection also, so that doubly sucks. And before long I write a sad book that is made into an 80s movie, and resume the dusty trail to Sha Quest's shrine. Still a quiet trip to the south, feeding Umbra a quick bite to eat, getting Wolf stuck on the out-of-bounds collision, and eventually I'm talking to myself. Much like I'm talking to myself to my editor to put down some text here. Be sure to make it fancy. I said no swearing, you arsehole. Please don't quit on me. I'll pay you more. No, I can't afford that. Please don't make me break the multilateral construct of time anymore. Lunacy aside, the Sha Quest quest is another easy quest to do. I talked to the local shaman of Border Watch, and he lets me in on the end of the world prophecy, and I figured they could have a sneak preview. Since I am level 100, I have no issues in picking the key off the innkeep, and put the cheese from the case into the cooking pot, and the town has a nice serving of ratatouille. Next part is the death of sheep. I put the poison in the feed trough until the herd is living in their heyday, and I stand in the middle of town and watch it rain cats and dogs and subscribe buttons. I return to talking to myself, and I get the Wabbajack, which is man Oblivion, it might have some uses. With the first batch of quests done, I figure I could use some sleep so the chronically tired me can go one day without hallucinating that Todd Howard is coming after me for breaking his children in every video. I spent half an hour finding a blade and then blunt trainer. No one knows how to slice and dice, or let me train because I refuse to be indoctrinated in some cult. I have my gods of destruction, thank you very much. I eventually found a bookshop owner who runs a backstory dispensary, and I take the long-awaited slumber and woke up to Oblivion being Oblivion.
Questions? I'm Otamil. No, really, it wasn't me. Never. They say a whole island with an inhuman statue appeared near Breville, as if the world wasn't crazy enough already. Bye.
I also said hell with it with the min-maxing thing and the blunt rotation and sleeping, and just leveled myself up to level 8. Let that be a problem for future past present, future past me to deal with. Don't worry, it makes sense in my mind. Once I was happy with my level, I did a pub crawl around the entire province, trying to find a bottle of Cyrodiilic brandy. Eventually I arrived at the Lonely Suitor Inn, and found my bottle of booze. Didn't stay long because every other suitor there was either way older or way younger than me. Being 84 is rough. On my way to the party with Sanguivine, I decided to make a pit stop in the Cheater Cave for some good loot and a full set of alchemy mixers. Trust me, this is going to be very important later on. I also found a clan fear stuck in a room unable to escape, so I put the torture device to good use. Probably 6 Daedric get their jollies from this sort of thing. I mostly wanted to see if I could get a Black Soul Gem, probably one of the most annoying items to get in the game because the Cowardly Mages Guild does not like necromancy. Mannimarco at least has a very eco-friendly outlook on the undead. Reduce, reuse, and recycle the bodies. It was more hop, skip, and jumping through the woods, and even managing to get a back slice on a troll. I can never remember where the Sanguine is, but I managed to find Meridia instead. That quest I can't do for a couple more levels, so before I can slay the undead, I made sure a new hand touches the bacon. More wanderings, and before long I'm at the party goer and drinks the cheap brandy I brought him. It isn't even cognac. Like a lot of Daedric quests, he has a simple quest that is really fun to do. I arrive at the castle Leywin and watch the most racist guard stand put, not letting me through but letting some beggar get behind him. I see you, guard. I might not be an upstanding citizen, but with a few bribes the guard thinks I'm classy enough. Yep, totally a class act. I mingled with the guests, suffered through racism, and cast a fancy spell that removes all but the bare essentials. Stay classy, Cyrodiil. The guards weren't pleased with my antics and tossed me in the brig. I return to Sanguine and he gives me his rose. This rose is a little more tricky in Oblivion because the Daedric summon doesn't really have a side, and can come after the summoner. But I do enjoy a little chaos in my life. Since I am in the area, I decided to pay a visit to Miss Karkin and clear the dungeon out now. Miss Karkin is like Afghan in Skyrim, in that you can go through the dungeon whenever you feel like to get the dungeon item. I mostly play this area like a stealth mission, picking off the skeletons and goblins from behind. Well, as stealthy as this game gets because the concept is an absolute joke. Thank goodness nobody knows what a cry for help is. Please send help, I'm hungry. It wasn't a super long dive, just slicing at the Walking Dead, and before long I'm at the Great Welkinstone. I yank it out and the king comes out to play. Well, I wait for his back to turn, and then I reenacted the intro to Oblivion and slice the king in the back a couple of times, and I come out on top, and I'm back outside. Since I am in the area, and there's the whole can you beat part, I figure I should probably get the main story on track and clear out Kvatch before the high-level Dremora come out to play. Thankfully at this level, I still have the clan fears to deal with. Inside the gate, I find the lone soldier and I figure, why not, he can at least come and serve at least as a meat shield. I did not waste a lot of time outside, mostly watching the landmines mind their own business, and I'm inside the tower. And surprisingly, the guy is still with me and he didn't ditch me. Inside the second room, he became my hero as I managed to get knocked down with a horde of enemies coming onto me, but he jumps to my aid in my hour of need. You are my hero. What was her name again? The rest of the tower wasn't too difficult. I leave a prisoner behind in his eternal torment as I play Dungeon Keeper, and I fight my way up just for some blade experience. Eventually I say hell with it, leave my coworker behind to pick up the slack as I claim all the credit for the sweet promotion, and then a year bonus. And to my surprise, he managed to make it out alive. Please don't tell HR. I am the hero, and I promise I'll give you the promotion when you're 64 years old. I might have forgotten about talking to Joffrey, so before I get my baked beans, I made sure to hand over the amulet to Kings. Though in all reality, if I gave Martin the amulet, put it around his neck, and took him to the Temple of the One, wouldn't the Oblivion crisis be over quickly? Or am I just underestimating the Mythic Dawn? This is not a lore video. I cleared out the courtyard by myself, but Martin wouldn't come out with me. I brought along Mateus into the courtyard and cleared it out again. Thankfully both times were pretty easy. I returned to the temple, summoned the Lord of the Pretty Rings, and fended off the agents at the Priory. The excursion was pretty quick, and with my weapon being really good, I could at least hold my ground. We find out the deaths are horrible at keeping jewelry safe, and I escorted the duo to Cloud Ruler Temple, which I visited briefly when I was in the area. I spaced out on the speech brother gave. It wasn't much because I was in the loo, and my next task is to go book shopping, but I didn't feel like doing more main story. I decided to grab the not quite Daedric artifact now, also before enemies were leveled up. The hike to Centercliff wasn't too eventful, just marking some locations on the map for later, along with being the weird nudist lizard that stabs rats and wolves in the back. I also realized while traveling I might have been onto something. I wanted to be cheeky when grabbing my rune's dagger, and try to skip the longest dungeon in the game by diving through the back entrance under the lake. Turns out there's a door in the way that needs a key. Well, ain't that rude. I traveled up to the entrance like a boring peasant and do the dungeon the normal way. I will need to be careful with my enchantments here, because everyone here is either a vampire or human, meaning I can't soul trap them. I tried being stealthy at first, but I'm lacking in the chameleon department, so my cover gets blown. My first attempt went well, just rushing down the foes and coming out on top. Roses are red, Skyrim Switch 2 might be true, Oblivion is a stable game, what's new with you? Second go around, and the Dunmer were a lot more aggressive. I brought out Sanguine's Rose and let the Flame Matronarch do the dirty work for me. And I'm not talking about the dirty half the internet is thinking. Inside the main village, I plucked away at the soldiers in the shadows, anything to call the numbers. Ideally, I would like to complete this entire dungeon undetected, but I'm not very good at the sneak part. For the mining part, I tried to take out a couple of soldiers in their hell, but I knew the numbers weren't on my side. Just like going on the town alone, because who the hell would hang out with this idiot? I managed to pick up a helper from the last run, and snuck my way through the forge. My duel with the Forge Master was pretty straightforward. In my time of playing Fire Emblem, I know swords are effective against hammers, so long as I wasn't an armor knight. Back in the village with the first key, the second key is in the lower village, but now I have a lot of angry Dunmer coming after me, because the 13th Amendment means also in Cyrodiil, not just Vardenfell. I took out a few, then funneled everyone into a party house. I did not bring along a keg, or cups, or even food because I have none of the above. My hunger pangs alerted everyone in the area to my location, and I could clear them out without too much fuss. Inside the lower village, I found a captain training 2 potential proteges in the secret sword techniques. I stabbed both soldiers in the back, and sent the captain's life spinning out of control. Inside the second village, it was more or less the same, stabby until my ass cheeks alerted everyone in a 10-mile radius. I'm at least grateful I can suck the soul out of conjured ghosts, so I can keep Umbra fueled for a little bit longer. The second of the keys is in the upper portion of the second township. All I had to do was ambush the commander trying to be in peak physical condition. I am sorry, but Doritos and Mountain Dew is not a healthy diet. Red dusted controllers is very disgusting. Red dusted lizards, however, that is not ugly. I also power leveled to level 10 to try to get my strength up to 90 to skip a fight. We'll see about that in a couple paragraphs. I should note I never released a Morag Tong member because, I never knew there was a Morag Tong assassin. Well, with the village part done, I put the balls in their socket and began plundering through the Ayleid city where vampires and Telvanni were having a dispute. I want to play it safe for the second part of the dungeon, so I booked it past everyone. Well, that was until I got the sucky disease trying to figure out which way to go. Eventually I pulled my head out my bum, ran face first in an invisible wall, and had to parkour my way around the terrain, and I arrived at the Never Forgive Him. I just walked up to Drothan and backstabbed him. Well, I could take his heart and do this. I thought I could pry open the bars, since I think it was 90 you could force it open. Nope, it was 91! So now I need to kill the super boss. Thankfully Misery wasn't totally misery, mostly because I had a vampire stalker come after me. She was able to damage the boss while I played tank, and together we were able to beat probably the most stacked enemy in the game. Though when the boss was done I had to deal with the Patriarch. Mommy Vampire wasn't that hard. Just swing my sword around, and I could eventually come out on top, and I can grab my stabby, which will definitely be handy. And with that, the longest dungeon in the game is done, and I return to a local church, so I don't have to worry about getting sunburns in an era where SPF 20,000 doesn't exist. Since I am now level 10, quite a few more Daedric quests have opened up, and the first one I feel like doing is Meridia's. Her quest is like Skyrim's, go into a nearby dungeon and kill some necromancers. When I got to the graveyard, I made sure to pop down to save so I can at least save scum for a lovely black soul gem. The first part of the cave is full of rodents of unusual sizes, until a false door opened up to a necromancer den. I didn't feel like getting rushed down by 20 conjurers, so I used my brain and did hit and run tactics. It worked like a charm, and all the dancers have danced their last, mission complete, and on one of the bodies I found a black soul gem, meaning my next course of action will definitely be Mafala. Yeah, Mafala. I think that's what it was. My memory can't remember. I return to the fresh sunshine and commune with the Daedric prince of necromancer jokes are bad, and she gives me the kitty ring, which gives you a speed buff, and more importantly, chameleon. This game is just begging me to be an assassin. Next up in my great collectathon is of course Vermina. I ain't level 15. I am just really desperate for a source of healing, since the sustenance of nothing is starting to get to me at this point. Vermina's quest is one of the best quests in the game, and it's a really cool dungeon dive. Normally. I was just following the map marker like any good obedient Skyrim player who hisses at Morrowind, and I was not aware where the quest would direct me. Into the final room of the dungeon. The dungeon is cool, so I do the only logical thing. Okay, this is me, so take it with a grain of salt, and I clear out the dungeon backwards. The first room is full of dead bodies and some Dormora, nothing too special. The second room is full of false doors leading to walls, which is a metaphor of my life spiraling out of control, and the way I think is forward is actually a dead end, and I'm lost to insanity. In the following room, I get to play Oblivion as an ant. Please, for the love of Talos, don't make me do it. I'm getting close to 5,000 subs. After more Dormora were vanquished, I travel through a tower you see in Oblivion, and the dungeon wraps up like a normal little abode before the dive into madness. Never could find the room of hanging bodies. With my dungeon dive successful, I return to Vermina, and I'm gifted this Skull of Corruption, which is actually a really good Daedric artifact. It lets you create a clone of a person, and a copy will attack the original. Way better than Skyrim. Well, next up is down the river a bit, and I come across a bunch of NPCs being NPCs, even letting the wildlife maul them. Turns out by talking to the dragon, we found that their souls are stuck in Oblivion. This is what happens when you try to stalk your favorite content creators. You lose your minds and get sucked into a quagmire of hell that is their social medias. Unrelated factoid, but I do have a Blue Sky and Twitter account where I post my mad ramblings that I don't even understand half the time. Back to the task at hand, this mission is just going across a scattered landscape, playing tag with 5 ghosts scattered about. At first it wasn't bad, but at one point when I was looting treasure, I got blindsided by greed and I got trapped with a bunch of Daedra, and I tried to fight my way out. I took out a few of them, but knowing I'm in way over my head, I punched it out of there before they try to get a meal out of my empty stomach. I basically have no healing at this point, so yeah, I'm living on a prayer. Eventually, after enough sprinting like a headless chocobo, I rescued the last person, and I made my grand escape out of this hellhole, and I'm gifted Spellbreaker, which is probably the second best shield in the game. A 30% reflect spell, and stacked with my ring and Amira, I am basically safe on the magic side of things. Still a glass cannon though. And the following quest, which is also in the same neighborhood, is in the southern swamps of Blackwood, so it's a long hike down there. Only interesting thing is stopping a robbery of the Black Horse Courier, and stopping to talk to the courier many times for newspapers. Nothing on the state of New Vegas though. Eventually I arrive at the Shrine of Nocturnal, and I commune with the Prince of the Thieves Guild, so long as you don't steal her which is, funnily enough, the plot of the Thieves Guild in both Skyrim and Oblivion. And today, she wants me to find her eye. I would offer one of mine, but it comes with a couple defects. Very heavy baggage under my eyes, malnutrition not included, one very lazy eye, and I can perform a derp phase without trying, and I'm bloodshot while working on these videos at 4 in the morning. I have done her quest several times, given the reward is super good, so I break into a weeb's house, listen in on a conversation that trolls don't like water, and I hop my way there without too much to distract my small mind, and I'm cutting down the trolls and rats, and diving into the water and picking up some glasses, which I return to Nocturnal for the ability to pick locks, and it will never break, basically nullifying the entire difficulty of lockpicking in the game. And you thought Skyrim's lockpicking was a joke. And the last quest of the side quest batch, and I'm getting mad vibes from my old Let's Playing days, especially the Xenoblade ones, is in the far western part of Cyrodiil, and basically marking the last town on the map, being Anvil. When I arrived at the Shrine of Malakath, I remembered I do not have any troll fat on hand, when I just went through a cave full of trolls. Adding is hard, okay? Integration of trig functions is easy by comparison. While I was in town, I did end up selling a bunch of junk to offload my weight. Since I was in town, I figure I can knock out another one of the main quests. Well, I am a master assassin, so I basically murdered the guy in broad daylight and nobody seemed to care. Courier must have unleashed a mysterious multiple stab wounds in the torso-itis plague on the capital. My actions of being a master assassin did catch the eyes of the Thieves Guild rep. Sure, the Cala Nocturnal is Daedric artifact in some sense, but everything else for the questline isn't, plus not directly from Nocturnal, and it would blow up the playtime significantly more than what it should be. Also, same true for the Shivering Isles. Don't really feel like playing through the entire questline for a couple artifacts I probably would never use. While I talked to the bookkeeper on if he has the Augment Infinium, Bessie has his commentaries part 3. The sewer dive with Boris Johnson wasn't too difficult, just a bunch of boring crabs. I did bring out the Wabbajack until I turned a mud crab into an ogre. Must have been those mud crabs more fearsome than me everyone has been talking about. The rest of the dive wasn't too interesting, and Boris is attending a meeting. I become a part of the Mythic Dawn conspiracy as I use the Skull of Corruption on Raven, and a group of ravens is called a conspiracy or an unkindness, all of which applies. Thank goodness Raven wasn't called Crow, or else I'd have murder charges pressed on me. Well, with the group all cleared out, and the book collection completed, I talked to my fellow lizard friend, and she suggests I read the books to figure out the secret. I don't have time for the limited edition release with frilled edges and a photocopied autograph to come out, so I waited a tombstone for the neon lights to turn on, pointing me to the next dungeon. I waste no time, I just rush in and offer the doorkeep seconds. Still eats better than I do. For the first section, I embrace my stealth and try to sneak on through without too many casualties. As for the big room, I try to rush down Mancar before he escapes, but turns out plot armor is stronger than normal armor, so I lead everyone on a wild goose chase around the room. In the next room, the only characters who followed me were the 2 named members. It beats 20, so I took them both on, and the battle wasn't that bad, though the bodies kind of fell on each other in a rather unfortunate way. This must have been why the game is rated M besides a copious amount of blood added in, because barring a certain chance and dummied out files of the original game was rated T back in the day. Yeah, I don't fancy getting shanked by an army after my stealth failed, so I booked it out of there. I guess speaking of the topic of rated T, for those wondering why I have the blood turned off for these runs, besides YouTube not liking blood, I just like blood off because it more closely matches the original. In the last room, since only 2 characters can follow you at a time, I had to defeat one, and the other, after taking some damage, managed to run through the entire dungeon and met me on the other side of a wall. Must have been practicing the ridiculous stuff you can do with the magic system in the game. Oh well, he falls like the rest and I make my way out. Job well done, I return to Malakath, and the Daedric Prince of the Alpha Omega males wants me to rehearse for the next play at the local theater for the role of Abe Lincoln and free the ogre slaves from Lord Drad. I tell Drad he is a horrible piece of shit to his face, and he tells me to piss off. His wife at least tells me the ogres are trapped in the nearby mines. These guards of the mines are really well armored, well, compared to my skimmies anyways. I lead them outside to the fresh air and engage them in an uneven fight, where I at least had room to dodge, until they decided I wasn't worth the effort and started back to their cave. Well, their backs are turned, and I gave them a deep back massage with my blade. Back inside the den of inequality, I resumed in fighting the guards, except I'm still very outclassed. I then freed the army of Shrek fans, and it was all ogre for the guards. Thank goodness they came to my rescue, because I was a little too close to death. With the guards taken care of and the ogres liberated, I leave the cave and embrace the emancipation of an infinite load. Thanks, game. With reality in the right wavelength, the tables have turned, and the Drad has become the servant of the ogres, and the swamp has been restored to its rightful state. Someone's daddy tells me good job, and he gives me Fullendrad, which is a pretty decent warhammer. With the paralysis effect, you could always enchant on, say, a dagger, and watch the comedy unfold, or just use a magic system which is absolutely broken. Well, with my questline exhausted, I figure some more story progress is in order. I gave the danger book to Martin, and began spies. Well, I wanted to do more data quests, so I took a few naps, only to be embraced by cruel reality. And no, I'm not talking about the pajama day at the Cloud Ruler Temple. After sleeping a few times, I have exhausted all my levels, and I'm only level 14, meaning I am 1 level away from an important quest for my build, and also 6 levels away from my final level. So I figure I could do a few dungeon dives to level things up, really regretting the actions of present, past me's actions. First up is Fries. I found Jarl outside of town, and sadly she had one too many letters to be a Jarl, so off she went, and her compatriot also bit the dust. If anyone knows why the other Mythic Dawn member is so linked like this, do let me know. Well, I plunged through the basement, actually read the paper on the Great Gate since I haven't really followed this story closely in a few years, and as soon as I left the house, I was jumped by a proposal to go through the Veil. As much as I would love the One Ring, nah. Back at Martin's pad, I decided to do a little glitch. I'm on the base patch, and honestly I don't think I will update because I like this patch. I item duplicated the Sanguine Rose, so I can keep 1 copy and give another to Martin, and he has this interesting lore bit to share.
I never thought to see this again. I once possessed it, briefly. A lifetime ago, it seems now.
Next quest is the Boromir Gate. Captain Bird was complaining about back pain. Doctors hate this one trick in getting rid of back pain. Throw yourself in the nearest hell portal and fight to the death against the demons to either save the world or become a martyr to the cause. I think I can see why doctors hate this trick. Throwing yourself must not be good for your body. Since I am level 14 at this point, the game is starting to throw much stronger foes my way. Mostly the 34th enemy in the bestiary and a few others. I don't care about carrying the enemies, mostly getting the experience. The guards here are actually competent at this point. I thought they'd be dropping like flies onto my food, becoming my meal for the night. Seriously, flies are not nutritious. I put in some use as Vollenrung, knocking down the enemies and letting my backup pick up the scraps, not saving any for me. There wasn't much else for the tower, and once I got to the last room, I just booked it for the true mascot of GDQ, closing the gate, and somehow managing to bring everyone back alive. The day is saved, no new level ups are gained, and I get my next mission from Boromir. On my way to Sacred Tor, I decided to hike my way there for moments of experience, and the first bandit I came across I farmed block until he inevitably succumbed to my reflection aura. I am totally not becoming desperate at this point, and every encounter along the road is just an experience farm. Even was stalked by a mountain lion, which I got a couple of proficiency upgrades to, and this time, I remembered to skin the lion for its pelt. Since I was in the neighborhood, I decided to do a bit of a scenic hike up the steps in probably the most beautiful part of Cyrodiil. There were quite a lot of bears along the journey, and before long I was in the Danger Potato Shrine, which I cannot start until after I have completed every other Daedric quest in the game. At the very least in my detour, Saber-Torn Achilles was nearby, just had to make sure I didn't trip face first down the mountain. And outside the dungeon I had to deal with the Lich. Yeah, the level scaling is really starting to catch up with me. Instead of the rundown fort, the enemy variety was a bit more varied, mostly with one new type of enemy, with some of the ghosts being upgraded to wraiths. Sneak attacks continue to be the MVP. As for the first skeleton, it was a bit more difficult to take down compared to the spectral compatriots. A few hammer swings still gets the job done. Now comes the arduous task of finding all the ghosts who failed on their mission and letting them know break time is over. The ghosts have very poor spatial awareness of a crazy person charging them down with an evil toothpick and were cut down. Valdemar is currently suffering from multiple personality disorder, and one personality is trying to off the other. I intervene and destroy the body so the soul can be free. Which soul escaped? That is for you to decide. The rest of the dungeon was pretty straightforward. Cut through the ghosts, and I think I got the chills from one of them, which I don't get cured for a while when I realize I have hypothermia. At least when I defeated the skeletons, they dropped some bone meal, which I'll take. Any meal is better than none at all. I'm starting to think me being hyper-frugal might be contributing to my decline in health. Nah, gotta save that money for rent after all. Eventually the ghosts get off their 433 or so year-long nap, lower the barrier so I can grab the armor, meet the newest blade recruit being a horse, take a bathroom break while I watch two neckbeards practice their katana skills, and I finally ascend to level 15, meaning I can now start Mafala's quest. Thankfully her quest is a pretty fun one, longer than the one in Skyrim. All you need to do is kill 2 leaders of the town without anyone knowing, and plant evidence the other person did it. You know, kinda feels like a Dark Brotherhood quest, come to think of it. I broke into one guy's house, steal his dagger, break into the other guy's house, steal his ring, return to the first guy, often pretty stealthily, and planted a ring, and then find the other loser in the middle of town. One important thing about this assassin, time of day is a suggestion, and I have murdered in broad daylight in the middle of town before. Except in Oblivion, the concept is a suggestion. I can't kill the town or else the quest will fail. I tell the Nords the Dunmer are to blame for my misdeeds, and sit back and watch the fireworks unfold. With my evil deeds done, I return to the shrine and get the Ebony Blade, so now I can finally heal. And at this point, I have reached an impasse as I use some idiot Mythic Dawn agents as B-roll footage. I am level 15. I need to hit level 17 to unlock more quests, and 20 to finish my bonus objectives. As for the main story, I am basically at the Great Gate, which I can't afford to farm experience, and the finale, so I'm stuck here. And I don't fancy doing a full quest line to pad out the runtime of this video. It's gonna be long enough of a run as it is. So yeah. However, I am not a fair player. If I'm able to, I shall break the games when I can, and break the games I must, so long as I get done at a reasonable point of time. I am still playing on the launch edition of Oblivion, so that means item duplication is still on the menu. I figure I should probably consume some actual food that I can afford, so ramen is outside my price point. Well, also I go around the town and purchase some ingredients for a quick farm, buy a lot of arrows and find out Smash and Slash seems to have a never-ending supply of iron arrows, and return to the Tutor's Way for new alchemy items, but sadly nothing new is available. The first item to cook with is mandrake root and root pulp to make a cure disease potion, since I am but a novice, and I button matched like crazy getting some crazy level ups. Like by the time I was done with my first recipe, I was already a journeyman, and I sold all my potions for a nice sum of cash. Cooked up my next recipe, being scales and white seed pods to make a water breathing potion, until I ran out and sold my potions for a nice stack of cash, while also increasing mercantile. I returned to my favorite place to crash for the night, and I'm not talking about an uncontrolled intersection, because the idiot on the left doesn't think they have to yield, and I reached level 17, meaning more quests are finally available for me to do. The first quest I wanted to partake in was Hircing's quest, so that way I can finally wear some armor. I spent a long while in the woods because I could never remember where Hircing was hanging out. I did fight a few bears along the way, and never once did it occur to me to skin their fur for a pelt. It'll bite me in the arse in a couple sentences. Thankfully there wasn't much going on the journey, just me noticing a lot of Oblivion gates are now open. before long I'm at Hircine Shrine, finding out I'm lacking on a bear pelt, so now I have to go hunting. Told you I'll bite me in the ass in a couple sentences. At least since I'm high leveled, I don't have to search very hard for more bears, and I'm talking to the Prince of the Furries. And since I already hunted a novel from 1968 that would later be fashioned into a hit 1982 animated movie, I can turn in the quest and get Saviour's Hide, which offers a decent magical resistance and also looks cool on the side. Combining this with Spellbreaker and the Ring of Namira, and I am basically a mage's worst nightmare. Also, the Ebony Blade has silence. Yeah, Mancar has nothing on me. The other quest I can do now is Moleg's Ball, since I now have a new avenue to gain experience. I take the time and fight off the wildlife, and once a bear mauled itself to death, along with the dog, I made my way to the most messed up or second most despised Daedric prince, and he wants me to corrupt the youth. Mostly some paladin in the nearby settlement. I got the information from a sufficient source of information, and met the paladin at a grave nearby. I de-equipped my spike aura, and dropped the cursed mace on the ground, and made the guy not like me. I provoked him into a fight, and let him beat me to a pulp. I am very tanky at this point with 100 in endurance, so it takes me a long while to die. Eventually, after my armor breaks and I get a few level ups in skills, Moleg tells me I'm a good little devil and gives me his mace, which in the original was bugged and didn't do anything, but now it absorbs strength and magicka for 5 seconds. I still think this is the worst Daedric weapon, especially since it's obtained at level 17 and you probably have better items at this point. Also, side note, I totally forgot I had this weapon and I never use it in the run. Goes to show how little I care for this mace. With my questing done for the time being, I go back to the grindstone and grabbing items to brew potions, and my new recipe is primrose leaves and bone meal, duplicating both until I have an all-you-can-eat buffet, filling me with hope and sustenance, and making a fortified luck potion ad nauseum, making over 600 of them actually, which I take to the nearby store and make an absolute killing. Then I spent probably half an hour making an expert level potion of aloe leaves, blackberries which was a pain for me to hunt down, stinkhorn cap, and fly-a-moutha caps, to make a super fancy restore fatigue and health along with an invisibility potion. I continued to button mash until my fingers hurt even more, hitting level 95 in alchemy, and selling all my potions once again for a crap load of money that I hardly even need, enough to probably buy the most expensive house in the game, or a few enchantments. When all is said and done, I return to my long slumber, and I finally hit level 20, meaning I can finally enter the final stages of the run with only 2.5 quests left. I began to hike my way to the far reaches of the map, hiking over mountains and platforming perilously, and I commune with Bolethia, once again being the highest level Daedric quest. They want me to fight to the death in 9 boss fights in a row. Sounds like fun. They tell me to take all the time I need to prepare, that being all at 2 seconds, and then I entered hell for Mortal Kombat. These enemies are very tanky, bolstering enchanted armors, typically being glass or Daedric, powerful weapons including the Daedric level that I can't use because they have not been around for a millennia, and the first enemy being a Breton dropped 20 potions. Yeah, they were prepared for a hard time. I think after every battle my entire armor set broke, and I ran out of repair hammers quick. The first 3 battles were thankfully pretty easy. Dark Elves and High Elves don't have much for health, and they go down easily enough. I laugh at mages at this point, so yeah, the High Elf was very easy. For the Imperial though, well, I know I'm underprepared for this as soon as I saw the Daedric attire, so I brought out my one-shot dagger, a few swings later, and the Nord fell. As for the Khajiit, yeah, I'm really struggling at this point, and I brought out the Ebony Blade, and it turns out the Ebony Blade is kinda not that good. It absorbs 8 health per swing for 5 seconds, which is a small regen effect in theory, but I think it more or less busts my HP by 8 points. So I'm basically without healing for these fights, and I don't really notice my health bar going up. Thankfully with a few more slashes I could come out on top in this cat fight, and next up is a blind Nord, so much so I could get a sneak attack on, and brought out my one-shot dagger, and luck smiles upon me and granted me one shot on both the Nord and the Orc. I brought my knife to the red guard, and luck was not smiling on me this time, and I was taking quite a bit of a beating. So much so I had to retreat. My one-shots weren't taking hold, and I was super close to death. I had to do the Dark Souls strat of going in for a swing, and backing off for an attack cycle. I had to get greedy close to death, and I could come out on top. Thankfully the Wood Elf was a nice change of pace. A big mallet is easy to dodge around, do a few swings, and let the big attack whiff. And with that, every champion has been defeated, and I come out on top. For my Valor and Cheese, and somehow doing that entire gauntlet without healing spells or potions, I am gifted Goldbrand, which is probably one of the best weapons in the game. 22 fire damage, on top of a high attack stat, with one of the most charges in the game. I am pretty set. With all that done, I just have Vile's quest left, so that means it's time to give up Umbra. I want to have a greater soul in my star at a moment's notice, and I got into a tussle with a group of minotaurs. The first went down easily enough, but I knew I was in danger when I saw my health transform from a bar to a sliver. I had to take a totally tactical retreat to Breville, and went around the stores to repair my equipment. With my body restored, I returned once again to the minotaurs, and they have not healed at all. I turned this uneven matchup to my flavor as I come out on top with a soul for paradise. At this point, my long journey with Umbra, which has been my carry for basically the entire run, has come to a close. I traveled to Vile's Shrine, talked to an NPC there, who instructs me on how to commune with Vile, and I was a little too quick in my activating the shrine, and I glitched out the dialogue between starting the quest and handing in and softlocked my game. After rebooting the game immediately tells me to hand in the quest, which I do. I offer up the most dangerous sword in the Elder Scrolls, and Clavicus gives me his frankly useless helmet that fortifies personality. Probably the worst of the attributes. A little protection is better than none. So you might wonder, how exactly does my character with his massive head and horn fit inside this small helmet? Simple really. The helmet has noise cancelling capabilities, so the world won't be able to hear my screams for help. I then traveled to Hermaeus Mora, and now I can begin the final quest. If you thought my lisp was awful, at least I am still more audible than Mr. Ahego. I ran into a small problem though. For me to use the soul trap, I need magicka. I didn't have enough magicka to cast it. I thought it'd be bone and need to level up. Nah, I just had hypothermia. A quick visit to a chapel, and I'm ready for cleanup. There are a few ways to get the souls of the 10 races to Hermaeus. My favorite way is to actually visit all the shrines across the province and killing everyone there after they have been soul trapped. It makes the long journey come full circle. That being the stab wound in their chest. I can't really tell the difference between a few of the races such as Bretons and Imperials, so I ended up killing indiscriminately. I would go into the details of my actions, but it evolved into simple //////// oh hey look, I'm done. I returned to the Tentacle Beard and got Ogma Infinium, a silly little book that I cannot drop that gives you a bunch of bonuses to stats, along with a +10 to attributes, which is one of the few ways to get attributes over 100. I could satiate my hunger for knowledge, but not satiate my stomach hunger. With my Daedric hunt done, it is finally time to wrap up this playthrough. I returned to Martini and gave him both the Armor Tyre Septum and the Great Welkin Stone, which he is pretty elated in my proactive discoveries. So much so he strips down to his PJs and has an NL in front of his name. This must be the secret lore that Martin Septum is secretly from New Labrador. Once the map transitioned, he was in his regular attire, and then I traveled to Bruma and be arrested on the spot for my psychopathic tendencies, and when I came to, I had some zombies come after me. I have no idea where they came from, but if I had to take a guess, it was probably my cellmates after finding out that I'm the champion of every Daedric prince, and the sheer aura transformed them. I then talked to the Countess a couple of times, and I tell her I'm a one-man army, and then we march through the streets, cheering on the farmer ready to harvest his field. It is definitely an Iowa thing to do such a thing, and then we arrive for the big battle. Yeah, since I am level 20, a lot of the high-end Daedra like the Spider Daedra and Daedroth were coming out to play, along with the Zavilia. Yeah, I was ready to struggle big time. I did take quite a bit of a beating. My armor broke pretty early on in the fight, so I had to play things cautiously. Everyone thankfully was pulling their weight, and even at these high levels, it wasn't a total bloodbath. At least for us anyways. So long as Martin doesn't die, because if he does, I'll have to reload my last quick save. I picked my fights carefully, and eventually the big gate opened for me to sprint through. First thing I saw was a big Doomsday machine, along with a flame atronach that is actually not immune to lava. I did not waste any time on the Great Gate, since, well, the world is ending. I don't have time for pleasantries. Inside the tower, the Sigil Keep was at the bottom, and I had to deal with him before I could go into the blade traps. I was still low on health with no way to heal, even though I could probably eat a few hearts for some protein. Who am I kidding? They're probably considered a rich person delicacy, so outside my price range. I sprinted through the tower, faster than a crowd charging into Target on Black Friday before the Amazon takeover. I shall never forget the bloodbaths for small discounts because of consumerism. I pull out the big ball before I'm turned into a ballistic, and emerge out of the gate with victory achieved. Though sadly Joffrey did not make it out alive. All that remains is the endgame. I did not waste any time in the preps. I talked to Mr. Bean and entered Paradise City and welcomed in the beautiful environments. Oh, f*** off, Windows. I did come across a small issue with the dungeon, that being Bands of the Chosen. I didn't engage in combat with the Dromora outside because I like some violence, and pried the bands off of his cold body. I wanted to see if I could jump over the exterior and skip the insides, but I don't know where the hole in the invisible wall is, or if I need high fortify acrobatics to get over it anyways. I said hell with it, and went into the caverns. I didn't want to fight anything here, so I just sprinted past everything, and arrived at the ominous door. It will not let you pass unless if you are wearing the gauntlets, so I'd sort of have to fail the challenge, and put on the gauntlets. Gotta love key items messing up the rules, but to compensate, I ignored everything, put myself into the lava tube, and ran through the rest of the section. Thankfully it is very short, and Eldamil took off my bands, putting the challenge back on. Yeah, I want to conserve my armor condition for Mancar, so I ignored everything and pressed into the throne room. I put on a dash of irony onto Mancar. He is a mage, and my entire armor set ignores magic. He stood no chance whatsoever. And to add irony, I killed him with Mehrunes' dagger, killed and soul absorbed by the very prince he swore fealty to. Wouldn't that mean the Mancar Cameron run for Skyrim never happened?
Snake, what have you done? You changed the future. You've created a time paradox.
I took the amulet off the rotten corpse, collapsed on the throne, and returned to Tamriel to finish the run. The final mission is more or less a victory lap when you come to think about it. All you need to do is watch the cutscene, fight off a couple of Daedra that pose very little of a threat, dash through the courtyard to preserve Martin's life, get a glimpse at Dagon as I run past his ankles, sit as a spectator to watch the two titans duke it out, and somehow not die in the excursion. Martin gets stoned, and I have sort of completed Oblivion Remastered with only Daedric artifacts. And also, I successfully beat Oblivion Remastered without any potions or healing in general. That was actually a very fun run, and until the last couple of hours, I think the funnest part of the run was just starting out with nothing and slowly improving myself through the run, getting more to my repertoire. I felt so weak through the entire excursion. Taking the Lord's Sign was definitely the best play I could make, just so I could actually, survive. The artifacts were a hit and miss, except for the staves and rings and the super good skeleton key and Azura Star. Most of the weapons you get were pretty underwhelming, or you could easily get with enchanting. At the very least, I can partake in some entertaining quests. But you know what is the most surprising part of the run? The thing that honestly dumbfounded me. I was able to beat Oblivion Remastered without any real form of healing barring natural regeneration, all without dying a single time. Don't get me wrong, I came close a few times, but I would somehow come out on top. It's almost like Oblivion wasn't a very hard game to begin with. I always felt Oblivion, barring the higher difficulties, was an easier game than Skyrim once you understood the systems. We all just sucked when we were younger. But overall, I had fun until I was level 14, then everything dragged to a halt. Grinding to the higher levels is always such a drag. The leveling system of Oblivion was never the greatest. You get levels so quick early on, then you just stop. But hey, that is what glitches are for, I guess. Well, I think I'm done for the run. This went on for far longer than I was anticipating, and I'm ready to find something to scrounge up for dinner. Maybe I can treat myself to a salad. Hopefully you'll enjoy this run. If you did, be sure to drop a like, subscribe for more masochism and any other ways to torture myself, leave them down below. This has been Orpheolus, and I'll see you on the next one.